So we're now recording. All right, so where does Office 365 fit into the whole Acumatica story, and why are we doing a session here at the Demonstration University about Office 365? As I was just saying, one of the things which differentiates some partners' demonstrations from others is their ability to tell a story. And not just their ability to tell a story, but also their ability to construct a solution. Now, a solution consists of many components. If you think about it, as an Acumatica partner, a solution or the solution that you're providing can consist of, well, first of all, the Acumatica software, whether that's deployed on-premise or in the cloud. It can also consist of the services that you provide as a partner, the implementation services, the support services, and also it consists of your understanding of the customer's business and the customer's requirements. But the solution can also consist of complementary solutions from some of our ISVs that add additional specific industry functionality to your Acumatica deployment. But there's more to it than that. The solution can also consist of other applications that are being utilized by a customer. Now, when you're constructing your demonstrations, when you are getting ready to go and present the solution to the customer, part of the challenge is to know exactly what your competitors are going to be talking about. And I think it's fair to say that when you're going in and you're talking about enterprise resource planning, one of the key components and one of the promises of enterprise resource planning is all around boosting productivity. Now, how do you boost productivity for a customer? Well, you boost productivity with the Acumatica solution, of course, but there's more to it than that. Now, within Acumatica, one of the advantages that we have, as you know, is that we have our ability to build and deploy some document management functionality and some collaboration functionality inside Acumatica. But it's a case of saying, well, what are the things that I need to do that show off each one of these aspects of what the customer is looking for to its best? Now, I'm just going to start showing my screen right now, and then we'll dive across and we'll go into my upgrade screen here. And I've just been upgrading my Sharepoint site with Office 365. If I go across here into Acumatica, as you know, built into the Acumatica solution is a full wiki capability where you have the ability to go and create all of your own documents and share that information out through Acumatica. So what does that mean? Well, you have the ability to go into your Acumatica deployment, and you can go into system, you can go into customization, you can go into your sitemap, and you have the ability to add additional screens in the sitemap. So now when you're in your sitemap and you're looking at it, and you can say, well, you know what? If I go here into my organization area of the sitemap, which is everything that comes up here, I can choose organization, and then I can say, all right, when I'm in organization, I want to see these options. But one of the other things that you can potentially do is you can link to external websites as well, and you can incorporate that external website functionality into Acumatica. So what does that mean? Well, a lot of customers today are utilizing some kind of portal solution, and a lot of those customers today are utilizing Office 365, and a component of Office 365 that no doubt many of you are aware of is Sharepoint. Now, what is Sharepoint? Sharepoint is fundamentally a portal platform that allows you to collaborate with other people inside your organization. Sharepoint has the ability to create what are called Sharepoint apps, and these are little pieces of web-based functionality that do specific things. So maybe, for example, you want to track resources and utilization of resources on a project. Well, there's a SharePoint app you can use for that. If you want to do document management with document check-in, document check-out, all of those kinds of things, there's an app that you can add into SharePoint for that. So there are so many different components here that you can utilize. It's a very, very powerful solution. Now, one of the things that you're going to find when you're going in and you're competing, for example, against Microsoft, and I know some of you who are on the Demo University today, some of you are actually selling some of the Microsoft Dynamics products today. Maybe you're selling Dynamics Nav or Dynamics GP or AX or maybe even Dynamics CRM. But one of the things that you'll know is that what Microsoft are doing is they are going in and they will encourage their partners to lead with this whole productivity story and start talking about the fact that with Office and with SharePoint, you are utilizing tools that drive productivity. And then what they'll do is they'll start doing the demonstration and they will lead off by talking about SharePoint and demonstrating SharePoint functionality and then seamlessly flowing across into demonstrating the ERP functionality. Now what then happens? Most prospective customers, the line starts to blur between, well, how much is SharePoint, how much is Office, and how much is the core ERP solution. Now my call to action for you is to start thinking about the same thing. How do you go about the process of starting to blur the lines between what we offer in Acumatica and what other vendors offer in their solutions? And it's a very, very quick and easy thing that you can do. And it does not require you to, for want of a better term, let's use a really strong way of describing it, it doesn't require you to lie. Okay, you don't have to make up stories. You don't have to use smoke and mirrors. You just have to be able to present your solution and demonstrate the functionality that's there. For example, let's say this is my SharePoint homepage, all right? And this is just a very standard SharePoint homepage that I've built, and we'll get into some of this in a minute, into customizing all of this. But all I need to do is I just grab that URL and I'll copy it. I'll go back into my sitemap here, and I want to add another page, and I'm just going to call it SP000000, okay? And I'm going to call this SharePoint homepage. And I can give it an icon if I want. I can use one of these standard icons that are in the system, or I can create my own icons, and we're going to talk more about this next week in next week's Demo University, because don't forget, in next week's Demo University, we're going to talk about how you can completely customize the entire look and feel of Acumatica with cascading style sheets to make it really tailored for a customer-specific presentation. But you know, I can pick, for example, this icon, the controller info icon, and then I can go in here into the URL, and all I need to do is then just paste that URL in there. I hit my save button, and now under my organization tab, I have the ability to call that SharePoint file. All right, so if I go to Organization, you'll now see up the top, I have my SharePoint homepage. So I can select that SharePoint homepage, and when I go across here and select it, what do I get? I get the SharePoint page rendering inside Acumatica. Now, if I have got other components of SharePoint, let's say, for example, if I go in, and this, by the way, this is not a SharePoint training session. It's not my intention to show you all of the things that you can do in SharePoint. But for example, if you've got a calendar inside SharePoint, so here is my calendar, and of course don't forget you can tailor all of these colors. Here's my calendar inside SharePoint. All I need to do is I can grab the URL for this page and I can pump it out and put it here into my sitemap. All right, so let's go and look at how I might do that. So I'll go to calendar. Again, what you're going to see up the top, there is my page. So I'm going to copy that. I'll go across here into Acumatica. I'll go into into system, into my customization, back into my sitemap. Here under organization, now I've got my SharePoint home page, and I can add another page under here, and I'll call it SP000001, and the title for this will be calendar page. Now you can go and set up calendars for all kinds of different things in SharePoint. So for example, you could set up an event calendar. You could set up a work calendar, a job scheduling calendar. All kinds of different things you can set up inside the system. Now, all you then need to do is add it into the system here and pop in your URL. And I'm just going to paste that in there. And that's correct. So that's all good. And then I'm now going to hit save. And now when I go across here to organization and to SharePoint, and I go to my SharePoint homepage, and for some reason that just didn't quite come up. Let me go back and double check that I've done that correctly. Go back into my sitemap, organization. There it is. There's my calendar page. Okay, that should be there. And let's just double check that. And hit save. All right, and come back to my organization. SharePoint homepage. What have I done wrong? I'm not quite sure. I'll come back and double check that in a minute. But what you can do is underneath here, you can end up with basically a complete set of these URLs that come up inside Acumatica. So let's say, for example, I have my shared documents page. If I want to publish my shared documents from SharePoint inside Acumatica, I can go through and do exactly the same thing. Grab that URL and populate it into the system. So let me just pause for a second and make sure that I have everybody following along with me and see if you've got any questions right now. So I'm just going to unmute everybody. So you're all now unmuted. So if you've got any questions, please take an opportunity to ask the questions now.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's get past that. We can discuss that and do different things. I think there's a, I have kind of a different approach than I think Mike had when they originally set it up.
Okay, so it sounds like somebody else is actually having a conversation while they're listening to this. So maybe if you have a question, if you want to, you can put your hand up, and I will just unmute you while you ask your question, or type the question into the GoToMeeting chat. I'll just pause for a couple of seconds to give you a chance to do that, and we'll see if we've got any questions. So just while you're thinking about your questions for a second, I'm just pausing my screen sharing. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to double check why that link isn't showing up, and I'll just quickly see if I can resolve that. Just bear with me for 1 second, please. All right, so I'm back and I'll start sharing my screen again. Doesn't look like we've got any questions. No one's put their hand up to ask a question. So far so good then. Hopefully that means everybody's following along with everything that I'm doing here. So what have I done is I've gone in to my company dashboards, and what I've done is I've added the calendar page into my company dashboards, and you'll see there I've added it in there. So now in my standard configuration or my standard organization, I go into my company dashboards. You'll now see up here I've got my calendar page, and there is my calendar page inside Acumatica. So I've got my sales dashboard, I've got my support dashboard, all the standard things that you can see inside Acumatica, and blended in with that is your calendar page functionality. So now, let's say, for example, somebody has said, you know what, well, what I'd like to do is I'd really like to start blending all of my document management together. So one of the things I want to do is I want to take documents and I want to pump them out into Excel, and then I want to save those inside Office 365. So how would you do that? Well, very, very simple. All you do is you go here, go into your configuration. Let's find, let's find a generic inquiry that we've done. So, for example, let's say I've got my standard generic inquiry, which is sales orders and quotes. Let's just double check where that's sitting, because I have a terrible habit of moving that around in different demos. So right now that's sitting under audit, under sales orders and quotes. But let's actually move it. Let's move it back here, and let's move it under distribution, under sales orders, and let's put it in our processes area. Okay, so that's now back under processes. Let's hit save. And that's now done. So we'll go up into distribution, we'll go into sales orders, we'll go into our processes, and there it is. There's our sales orders and quotes generic inquiry. So now we'll run our generic inquiry, and we have the ability now to go and generate that out as an Excel spreadsheet. So now, there's my Excel spreadsheet's now been created, and it's being exported out. What I can now do is I can open up that spreadsheet. Give it a couple of seconds. And then I'm just going to enable my editing in the spreadsheet, and I'm going to enable my content. Now, as you know, when you push this spreadsheet out from Acumatica into Microsoft Excel, there's automatically that web services link in the back-end system that allows me to go in here and click on data and then do a refresh. But what I can now do is I have the ability to go in and I can now choose Save As. And one of the things that you'll see is I have the ability to go in here, and I've got an old link here from a previous demo where it was coming up, showing up as SAP Business One on Demand. Sorry about that, folks. That should actually be coming up as Acumatica Cloud ERP for some reason. I'm not quite sure why it's coming up like that with the old name. I thought I'd fixed all of those. But you'll see, there you go, now it's showing up correctly, Acumatica Cloud ERP. So you'll see I have this shared document library. So I can now choose that shared document library, and I can go in, I'll give this a new name. So I'll make this is Acumatica Document Library. Or actually this is my Acumatica Sales Orders and Lines. All right. So I'll hit save. Now, that is taking that spreadsheet generated out of Acumatica, and it is now saving it inside Sharepoint. All right? So what does that mean? If I now go back into my standard SharePoint site, you'll now see I actually have here inside SharePoint my Acumatica sales orders and lines. Now I can go ahead and I can open that up from here inside SharePoint, and I'm now looking at that document inside Microsoft Excel online. So this is the web version of Microsoft Excel. So I now have the ability to work with that same document inside Excel online. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you've got somebody who says, well, gee, I'd really like to be able to take that information and put it up onto SharePoint, you can now do that. You can take any information you want out of Acumatica, any generic inquiry that you want to build, and you can publish it up into SharePoint. So, give you another example. Let's say if we go into our configuration, sorry, there I go again, go into our organization and into our company dashboards, you'll see that I actually have this CRM flow. And this CRM flow gives me the ability, as you know, to be able to go and double-click on a link inside the flow and call up that functionality in SharePoint. Well, you can go ahead and you can put all of that inside SharePoint. Why? Because all you need is the URL for that page. So again, how do I get that? Go here and say get link. There is my page. I'll copy that. And then I'll go in here and I'll close that. If I go into SharePoint, what I can now do is in my SharePoint, I can go in and add a link. Let's go back to our main site. All right, and I'll go in here into my site actions, and where are we? I don't want to edit that page. I actually want to go up. Let's go right up to the top. There it is, and if I go across here, and let's say, for example, I want to customize the quick launch. The quick launch is the area which comes in across the top and comes in on the side. I can go a new navigation link. I can put in the web address in here. And I'll just paste in my Acumatica page. And I'll say Acumatica sales orders. And where do I want to put that? Well, I'll put it here in my lists, and I'll say OK to that. And it's now here in my list, so I go across to Acumatica Cloud ERP now, and there you have, there is my Acumatica sales orders, and bang, straight away from inside SharePoint, it gives me the ability to jump across into that specific screen inside Acumatica. So, what does that basically mean? You're now able to give a prospective customer a demonstration of the integration between SharePoint and Acumatica. All you have to do is embed the SharePoint URL inside your Acumatica sitemap exactly the same way I've done it here. Remember, I took the URL, I added the URL in here to my sitemap, and then I added that page here as a calendar page. Or I added that calendar page in here, and I also put it underneath my company dashboard. So there's my calendar page, so I can take that. If I'm looking at company page, there's my calendar page. I can right-click. I can now copy that. I can take it here, and I can paste it in underneath this page as well. I can paste that page in anywhere. Hopefully that makes sense. When I click Save, then when I go in, again, into my organization. There's my SharePoint homepage. My SharePoint homepage is here. I've now got it there, and then you can see you've got that integration. Now, let's take it one step further. All right, let's say, for example, I now want to start getting a little bit more specific. I am going to go into a little bit of SharePoint functionality here right now, okay? So, in SharePoint, I can go in here and I can view all my site content. So now notice, I'm now driving my entire SharePoint system from inside Acumatica, all right? So I've now got all of the SharePoint functionality available to me. That's part of my Office 365 integration, and it's now all in here. So what I can do, I can map all of my site workflows, I can manage all of my lists, or what I'm able to do is I can go back here into my site and I can add a new app. All right, so if I go here into more options, give it a couple of seconds, and again, it's loading up inside SharePoint, and for some reason that's not quite generating yet. Let's give it a few more seconds. I'm going to just add another SharePoint app and publish that out. I'm just going to hit cancel there for a second and just see, maybe I've actually gone into the wrong area. 1 second. That's all okay. There's my site actions. Some reason that doesn't want to quite load up inside Acumatica. Now, it could well be that that's a cross-domain JavaScripting issue. So all I have to do is I'm just going to go back into my standard SharePoint site, and I'm going to try doing exactly the same thing from there. All right, and let's go here into our site actions. Let's go to more options again. Installed items. Now that for some reason, I didn't wait long enough. Sorry about that, folks. Let me do that again. More options. Okay, so what you'll see here, these are all the different apps that I can add inside SharePoint, all right, that I have loaded. These are all the standard ones. Group work sites, issues tracking websites, personalization sites, enterprise search sites, decision meeting workspaces, all kinds of different documents, all kinds of different SharePoint apps. And I'm even able to add additional apps from outside SharePoint. So for example, where are we? If I go here, all categories, I go and I look at collaboration. There should be the ability for me to go and select these from outside SharePoint, and for some reason it's not allowing me to do it, but you can, again, my apologies for that, you can go in and you can get a whole range of additional apps and you can plug them into your SharePoint deployment. Well, let's just pick one of these standard ones. Let's say I want to have a meeting workspace. So I'm going to have a basic meeting workspace and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it my warehouse management team meeting. All right, and I'm going to put it under WH_meeting. And I'm going to go and I can look at more options. How do I want to utilize this? Do I want to control my permissions, use the same permissions from SharePoint, whatever I want? Do I want to use the top link bar from the parent site? I'll say no, so I'll just say create. Give that a couple of seconds. And what do I now have? I now have my team meeting site. So I can grab that, copy, go back into my sitemap in Acumatica. I'll go in here into configuration. There I go again. Go into system, into customization, into my sitemap. Let's now go into distribution. Let's go into our inventory area, and in the work area, let's now go and add that page. So I'll click on plus. This is going to be SP000002. I'm just using SP to tell me that I know that this page has come from SharePoint. So I can go to warehouse, meeting, collaboration, or just warehouse meeting will do. Give it an icon. Again, pick one from our list. Where's a nice pretty one? We'll use this one. We'll say that's our collaboration icon. Paste that in. Hit save. And now, when I'm under distribution, I'm in my sales orders and my processes. Actually, I think I put it under inventory and processes, sorry. It's always a good idea if you can remember where you put these things. My bad. Let me go back and I'll double check that again. Sitemap. And it was under distribution. And I put it under inventory. And I put it under the work area. Right, let's try that again. Distribution, inventory, work area, and there it is. There's my warehouse meeting. So again, one click, and I now have that warehouse meeting functionality available inside Acumatica. I can take that one step further as well, and I can embed Outlook. I can embed Excel. I can embed Word functionality inside Acumatica. So let's say, for example, let's go back into my site, and let me go right back up to the top level site. You'll see now, for example, I've got this document. Let me just go back. Same scenario there. I can now right-click that document, copy the shortcut, go back in, and I can now add that document, system, sitemap, distribution, inventory, work area, and add a link, SP000003, and sales orders spreadsheet. And paste in the URL, and then go in here, pick an icon. And again, don't forget, we'll show you next week how you can do this. You can create all of your own icons here and have them available for you. Okay, let's just pick this one, and I'll hit save. And now distribution, inventory, there's my site orders spreadsheet. And what are you getting right now inside Acumatica, as far as the prospective customer is concerned? I am now working with Excel Online inside Acumatica. So, what's the point here? You are really only limited in the way that you construct and present your solution by your imagination and your ability to take advantage of all of these other solutions. Right now, I've just shown you how you can, with some very basic customization, incorporate and blend Excel, blend SharePoint, blend all that functionality into your Acumatica deployment. But you can go one step further. There's so many more things you can do. For example, not to beat a dead horse, but I just want to make sure I give you one more example that makes it very, very clear how all of this can work. I use a product called Hootsuite. And what I do with Hootsuite is my social media control panel. All right, so I'm going to sign in to my Hootsuite account. And there it is. And I'll put in my password. Just got to remember the right password. Okay, no, that wasn't it. And that wasn't it as well. Let me just... This is the advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you look at it, of having too many different usernames and passwords and not being able to remember them all the time. That's better. That's got it. All right. So now, here is my Hootsuite page inside the web. So now if I want to take all of that same functionality, I just copy my URL, go back to my Acumatica system. I can go in here, customize my sitemap again, and then what can I do? I can go right up to the top level, okay, and I can put in a top level link, and I can say, let's add a row, and this will be, I'll call this SM, because it's social media 000001, and I'm going to say this social media dashboard, and put in my URL, and that's it. I've got that there, and now I'll hit save, and now up the top I have my social media dashboard, and then when I go here and I choose my social media dashboard, well, guess what? I now have inside Acumatica a complete social media management system. So I'm able to now do a complete demonstration of Acumatica, and just by blending in the Hootsuite functionality, which is completely free for a starting account, I can now show people how inside Acumatica I am able to blend standard Acumatica functionality. I can go in, I can be doing my accounts payable, and then if I need to, as a user, I'm able to quickly and easily go across here into my social media dashboard, and I'm able to call up all of that social media function Acumatica. All right, so hopefully you found that to be a useful session today. Let me just go now and quickly check to see if there are any questions that people have around what I've shown you through today. So if you've got any questions, I'm just going to try the unmute all again and see if anybody else is actually doing another call. So you're all now unmuted. So if anyone has any questions or any feedback on what I showed you today, now would be a great time to share that.
I have a question.
Fire away.
If you are setting up work groups,
yes,
and there are multiple people in that work group,
yes,
how does it get set up so everybody gets to share that?
Okay, so when you say to share this in a work group, you mean to share these links in a work group?
Right, yes. So you set up a work group, you got a project going on, and it involves, 4 or 5 people in the company, and you want to have them to have the same access to the page.
All right, so are you looking for Acumatica to manage all of that, or are you looking to manage that from, say, SharePoint?
Well, that's what I'm asking, because each one of those, would you have to set up that page on each user's individual Acumatica entry screen?
No, you don't. I mean, the quickest and easiest way of doing it is just the way that I've done it here. But then what that does is that potentially makes it available for every user. Now, every user, if you don't set the limitations, let's say you've built that collaboration system in SharePoint. If you don't set the limitations on the collaboration app in SharePoint, then people can just go to it directly from SharePoint and get in. So really what you want to do is you want to set it in SharePoint. And then Acumatica is automatically going to pick that up, okay? Because they're both web applications, it's automatically going to pick up your credentials that you've logged into SharePoint with, and it's automatically going to pass those through and block you if you don't have access to it in SharePoint. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, you know, it's just really a matter of how you present it. Now, if you want to get really sophisticated, and you might bump into somebody who starts wanting to have a detailed discussion about managing all this with single sign-on, and getting really complicated with their single sign-on mechanisms. So, you know, SharePoint has its own single sign-on mechanism. Acumatica has its own single sign-on mechanism. In the next release of Acumatica, as I understand it, we will be able to potentially take the single sign-on from SharePoint and utilize that as the master for Acumatica. Okay, but you know, it's easily said, more difficult to do, but just wanted to give you the heads up that that's one of those things that we're looking at. You know, it's just one of those areas that can get particularly complex when you start looking at enterprise-wide security. But your average Acumatica customer probably won't ever bring that up. For them, they'll be happy to the fact that they've had to log into SharePoint anyway at least once during the day, and they've had to log into Acumatica, you know, and that usually doesn't present itself as such a big problem. You'll notice I haven't been prompted to re-log onto either system at any stage in my demonstration, because it's maintaining that session state across both systems. Okay?
Okay.
Good question, though. Thank you. Sorry, who was that asked the question? I didn't recognize your voice.
Peter Warren.
Okay, I thought so, Peter. Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions that anybody has? So again, I would encourage you to try and build some more of these standard scenarios. I am going to be putting more, and in next week's session, as well as going through and talking about customizing Acumatica, I'm going to introduce you to a new resource that I'm making available for you, which is called the Acumatica Sales Toolkit. Some of you may know, actually none of you who are on this call today ever worked with me when I was at SAP, but this was a thing that I put together when I was at SAP as well. It was incredibly popular with sales folks, because what it did, it allowed you to carry with you on any device a complete kit of all of the standard resources that you need to be able to sell Acumatica effectively. All right, brochures, documents, demos, videos, you know, all kinds of links to different demos that are set up and everything like that. So stay tuned for that one next week. And if you've got your pre-sales resources, maybe you're not the pre-sales person, maybe you're not that technically up-to-date on Acumatica. If you do have a pre-sales person that you work with, encourage them to come along to next week's session, because we're going to get into showing you how you can completely change the entire look and feel of the Acumatica user interface to make it look completely new, completely fresh, completely different, changing icons, changing fonts, changing colors, incorporating your prospective customers' websites into the pages, incorporating their logos, all that kind of stuff. And the reason why we're going to do that is because guess what? This is what NetSuite do in every one of their demos. So if you're up against NetSuite, you need to come along to next week's session and learn how you can beat them at their own game. Okay? So with that, last call for questions. No questions. So again, thank you very much for coming along. Please feel free to reach out to me and give me your feedback if you felt today's session was good, bad, or indifferent. I am going to start sending out proper feedback requests via SurveyMonkey just to get your feedback on the sessions. But if you do have any feedback, just drop me an email to rduffy@acumatica.com, and I'll look forward to talking with you again next week at the Acumatica Demo University. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.